Speaker, I want to take a few minutes to talk about Bill 213. One of the things that you quickly discover when you become an MLA is that what you suspected as a member of the public is often true about how politics really works. And I know for me as a healthcare professional who was concerned about the direction healthcare was going over the last couple of decades, frankly, I tried to join as many groups that were considered stakeholders as I could. VON Board of Directors, Ocean View Manor Board of Directors, Serving Seniors Alliance, CARP Nova Scotia. And I was part of the people who were getting consulted by government agencies. And at the time, it was always excited to be asked for your opinion. And you always felt a sense of hope that the things that you were saying were going to be listened to and acted on. And then what happened over the years is you get to become disillusioned and frankly a bit bitter that you get the sense that the consultation process is a bit of a show, that you get the sense that government agencies had already decided what they were going to do, but they were going to make a show of consulting with people. So I thought, well, maybe I'll have a bigger voice if I actually get myself into the legislature. And one would think that our voices would be even more significant. And I think a member on this side of the House earlier today said, how often does a member from the government side actually come and ask the opinion of the opposition? And I can tell you in the 2.5 years that I have been here, despite having 35 years of healthcare experience, I have been consulted exactly 0 times. So unfortunately, I was consulted more before I became an MLA than after. So for those who came to law amendments, or for those who have been watching this bill speed its way like a rocket through the legislative process to become law, they too have been disheartened by the sense that law amendments itself is a bit of an illusion, that what people say in there actually makes a difference. But I wasn't naive when I started here. I went to law amendments with great enthusiasm and listened to what people said at law amendments, and then I watched with bated breath to see how much of what they said over there turned into an amendment that the government accepted. And I don't know how many happened. I can't recall any. So I'll stand corrected if there were 1 or 2. But in 2.5 years, you know, it's my personal thought that law amendments might be the wrong name. Kind of like question period, we don't call it question and answer period. Law amendments should be a time where the public have some confidence that their voices matter. Because if you're not going to listen to the opposition who represent their voices, then perhaps their voices should at some point translate into an amendment to one of the government's laws. So some of the things that people wanted me to say, and I will table it for the Speaker, is that the bill that is being introduced now weakens one that we already had. That's kind of the last thing you think is going to happen, is that the government's going to take a good bill with strong measures and accountability and timelines into it, throw it out, and then bring in something that is not only already outdated, in some cases has already been achieved. People have said to me, I beg you to consider the implications of not acting fast enough or with the urgency required on the climate. And Mr. Speaker, I know from my community, one of the first things that I got approached about was about the constant coastal flooding. The Cole Harbour Eastern Passage constituency is bordered on 3 sides by the ocean. When it changes to be just the Eastern Passage constituency, the entire border of that constituency will be ocean. I have already brought to this House several times about the flooding along Shore Road, that there's a provincial beach called Noonan Beach. It's very small, but it overflows every time we have a storm, and then we've now left it up to the municipality to have to come and repair the road every time seaweed flows across the road and into the neighbors' houses. We've talked about here, because I brought it up, the breach of the berm many years ago when that happened out the Eastern Shore. It got repaired by the provincial government, and now no longer so, and those houses are now, the people who own those houses are now left on their own with no provincial assistance. People have said to me, we must set net zero carbon emission targets to a stronger, sooner goal because we can't waste any more time. And we need to have a safety net should we miss those targets because of unforeseen changes in the environment moving forward. People have said we must invest more in natural CO2 capturing initiatives, both on the land and in the sea, with things like reforestation, living shorelines that were talked about so eloquently during law amendments. We know and have been told that the offshore wind has the potential to create more electricity than we need and to create more new green jobs than we currently have. And this legislation, by the people who spoke at law amendments and those who've contacted me, feel that this doesn't go anywhere near far enough. This act talks about prosperity, but I wanted to mention for one last time about the disparity and the discouragement that I feel as an opposition member that our voices are not only not listened to, but often ridiculed every time we raise an issue, that we're then against something. And I heard someone say today that we were against Nova Scotia. And as someone whose family's been here since 1747, I found that offensive. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to ask this government to consider the words of everyone who has spoken in law amendments, and that moving forward in the next and perhaps last session of the legislature in the spring, that perhaps during one of those law amendments, they might actually amend a law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.